to turn it.
I also raised with Secretary Blinken just an hour ago that many speakers here have said that the lack of a two-state solution is also the origin of a lot of the challenges. So if there was a path towards a two-state solution based on the principles mentioned, it would also, according to these speakers, take a lot of momentum out of, for example, what we're seeing from Iran and their proxies.
Yeah, well, it takes, I mean, obviously, look, you're never going to bring about peace and stability in the Middle East unless you deal with the question of the future for the Palestinian people. That is right, but I don't think we should be naive and think that all the problems will be solved if that were to happen. You often hear on the BBC and other channels saying, well, there's a variety of conflicts happening here. There's the conflict between Israel and Palestine. There's the potential conflict between Sunni and Shia, between Saudi Arabia and Iran. But I would add there's also a third conflict going on, which is a conflict within Islam between those who want to see Islam as a religion of peace that can exist in all sorts of different states but in a stable way, and those who have an extremist version of Islam that leads them towards a path of violence. And it is worth, Hamas is not just
रियाज़ में आलमी इक़्तिसादी फोरम का खुसूसी इजलास जारी है। इस खुसूसी इजलास में इख्तितामी सेशन में शरह नमू में नई जहद पर गुफ्तगू की जा रही है। वज़ीर-ए-आज़म मोहम्मद शहबाज शरीफ इख्तितामी सेशन में शरीक हैं। आलमी इक़्तिसादी फोरम का खुसूसी इजलास रियाद सऊदी अरब में जारी है और इसका इख्तितामी सेशन है जिसमें शरह नमू में नई जहद पर गुफ्तगू हो रही है। इस इख्तितामी सेशन में वज़ीर-ए-आज़म मोहम्मद शहबाज शरीफ भी शरीक हैं। रियाद में आलमी इक़्तिसादी फोरम के खुसूसी इजलास का ये इख्तितामी सेशन है जिसका मौजू शरह नमू में नई जहद है। वज़ीर-ए-आज़म मोहम्मद शहबाज शरीफ इस इख्तितामी सेशन में शिरकत कर रहे हैं। वज़ीर-ए-आज़म मोहम्मद शहबाज शरीफ आलमी इक़्तिसादी फोरम के खुसूसी इजलास के इख्तितामी सेशन में शरीक हैं। इस इख्तितामी सेशन का मौजू है शरह नमू में नई जहद। इस मौजू पर गुफ्तगू की जा रही है। इस हवाले से आपको आगाह कर रहे हैं कि आलमी इक़्तिसादी फोरम का इख्तितामी सेशन रियाद सऊदी अरब में जारी है। इसी हवाले से मज़ीद तफ़सील जानेंगे नुमाइंदा PTV न्यूज़ असद जार खान से। असद जार खान, आगाह कीजिएगा, आलमी इक़्तिसादी फोरम का खुसूसी इजलास है और अब इख्तितामी सेशन की जानिब एक गामज़न है।
जी बिल्कुल, इस वक्त जो आलमी इक़्तिसादी फोरम का जो खुसूसी इजलास है उसकी एक इख्तितामी नशिस्त है और ये नशिस्त जो है शरह नमू में नई जहद इस मौजू पर हो रही है क्योंकि अगर गुज़िश्ता 30 सालों का डाटा देखा जाए तो ये जो दिहाई है इसका आखिरी हिस्सा सबसे ज़्यादा शरह नमू में कमी आई आलमी सतह पर। तो इसको किस तरीके से इसमें इजाफा लाया जा सकता है, वो क्या वजूहात हैं जिनकी वजह से ये सब मसाइल पेश हुए और अब क्या हिकमत अमली और अप्रोचेस इख्तियार की जाएं जिससे शरह नमू में इजाफा हो।
They should support a two-state solution because it's fundamentally in their long-term interest, but it also requires a change of thought amongst Palestinians and others about the nature of the future relationship with Israel.
Do you see any change in Israel where in favor of a two-state solution?
I think at the moment it's very difficult because obviously on October the 7th they suffered the biggest loss of Jewish life in a pogrom since the Holocaust, and you only have to go to those kibbutzes as I've been and see how children were shot in front of their parents, an incredible butchery took place, to realize it's very hard for the Israelis to think how they're going to live with the two-state solution. But that's the job of politicians and leaders and others. We have to make the arguments that ultimately long-term security will be better guaranteed if you have a two-state solution with the security guarantees that we're talking about. So it's not easy, but I think the work, for instance, that the Saudi government has been doing in terms of looking at the next step in the Abraham Accords of potentially normalizing relations with Israel as part of a political solution where, as His Majesty has said, the Palestinians would have to have the prospect of a state. That is hugely helpful.
as a part of a possible normalization between the Kingdom of
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia and
Yes.
Israel. You did mention, and I will now go to the other panelists, but you mentioned the Houthis and Britain now also being part of this undertaking with the US. But I think some Saudis said yesterday in one of the panels, but where were they in 2015 when we started to really being concerned about the Houthis?
Well, we were actually, in 2015, we were working very closely with the Saudis, trying to bring stability to Yemen on the basis of working closely with our allies. The point I'm making is that when you have that sort of activity, what was happening effectively was the Houthis were claiming they were doing this on behalf of the Palestinian people. That was their claim. And yet what they were actually doing was attacking ships of every nationality and every description as they went through the Red Sea. And that, I think, is just unacceptable. And you have to, the point was they were paying no price for it. There was no cost to them for doing it. And so it's very important to impose a cost on them, which is what we did.
Thank you very much. Let me now move to Prime Minister Sharif. Thank you for having come to the summit. And of course, we followed all the developments in your country, Pakistan, such an important country geopolitically, where it is situated, but also with a lot of potential for growth. But it has been through a rough period. We know that it's victim of big floods and possibly climate change related to that. It's also been instability when it comes to electricity. It also has had macroeconomic challenges. But based on the past, what is your plan as the new Prime Minister now to revive growth, better governance, and also make really Pakistan into a middle-income country or an upper-middle-income country by 2047? And sir, you have to take the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Brande. Just one sentence. Lord Cameron is a friend, and he's with other mediators doing a very hard work. But I want to make it very clear that the world will not be in peace unless there is permanent peace in Gaza. I'm telling you very frankly, and we're all feeling that. And as if it is not already enough, look at what has Ukraine brought to the world. You know, commodity prices went, skyrocketing. We could not import, procure vital raw materials for our agri-economy and industrial economy. And on top of that, inflation hitting and breaking the back of developing countries. And then, coupled with that, climate-led devastation in Pakistan in 2022 was something which was unimaginable. And I have to say, in all humility, that Pakistan is one of those countries which has nothing to do with these reasons leading to climate change. Our contribution to emissions is not even a fraction of a percent. And yet, we were devastated like never before. Large swaths of land were submerged. Millions of houses were washed away, millions of animals, and stagnant water-borne disease spread all over the country. And we had to cough out hundreds of billions of rupees from our own scarce resources to rehabilitate affectees, millions of them, children, under the sky. We're very grateful to all those friendly countries which were very helpful. Saudi Arabia, Britain, and Gulf countries, and of course, United States of America and many other countries. But the point at issue is where you have lost $30 billion in terms of your economic losses and 100 billion rupees, which is probably $300 million or so. It is just a fraction. And then when we approached international entities in Geneva and in other places, we had to borrow loans at expensive rates. I mean, we were not at fault at all. For no rhyme or reason, our country was hit in a way that in my lifetime, I have never seen this kind of catastrophic situation. And now that we have taken over, I just want to share, ladies and gentlemen, one example. My late father and his brothers were sons of a poor farmer in undivided India. And then they migrated to Pakistan before division of India in Lahore. Through dint of hard work and untiring efforts, in 1965, they raised the largest steel engineering company in Pakistan. And then on 2nd January 1972, it was nationalized. And there was nothing in their hand to be busy about. Yet, my father and his brothers never lost hope. And they stood up and accepted the challenge. And in the very same government regime, in 18 months, they raised 6 new small factories to avoid further nationalization. Goodness Bank was their banker. They said, come to England, we will give you a lot of opportunities. My father said, no, I was born here and will die here. Now, what is the moral of the story? That wherever there's a will, there's a way. So we are facing these problems, these challenges, but I think global North has to appreciate that global South will survive, then they will survive, and vice versa. We have taken over the reign of the country again after 8th of February this year, and I am now determined, in terms of the example I've just given you, to put things in order. Easier said than done. For example, our power sector is in shambles. I'm being very honest with you. Power theft in a massive fashion, and elitist culture, doles out and hands out being given to those who don't deserve it. Our revenue sector in tatters. What we receive annually, we lose at least 4 times that amount through leakages. And unless we plug these loopholes, we'll never be able to recover from these devastating impacts out of actions of our own, nobody else's. Let me be very clear. And then there's also a problem of inflation and debt trap. I call it death trap. Now, all this put together is a big challenge. I have to acknowledge from the core of my heart the support we have been given and received from Saudi leadership. I think a friend in need is a friend indeed, and we will never be able to repay back to them what they've done to Pakistan in difficult times. My friend, under his watch, DFID has been outstandingly supporting Pakistan in education and health. But the point at issue is that we have to stand on our own feet. Yes. And I know this is possible, difficult, but not impossible. And how? That is the point at issue. We are now going for massive reforms, deep-rooted structural reforms. It'll hit me as Prime Minister. Obviously, I have to provide leadership by example, ladies and gentlemen. Without that, nothing will happen. And then, of course, we have to go for austerity, meaningful austerity, just not for publicity. And three, we have a very young population. And this young population, which go into hundreds of millions of boys and girls, is a challenge, yet a great opportunity. So we have to provide them with modern tools and technologies, information technology, AI, and other vocational training, to provide them with opportunities to become self-earners, SMEs. And then here in Saudi Arabia, they should come here and open offices and contribute in nation-building efforts here in Pakistan, promote our agriculture through modern techniques, and of course, providing the farmer with best seeds and fertilizer, and of course, modern tools. My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's a humongous task. It's not an easy task. We have to go for higher exports. For that, we have to have opportunities made available to our exporters. We are a country. We don't have oil. We have gas, but it is on the lower trend, depleting. We have our biggest asset, natural resources, mines and minerals, fertile land, and of course, this youth, which is the biggest asset for Pakistan. And together, I'm not going into details over here, but before I came here, for example, in order to have deep-rooted structural changes, you have to separate black sheep from the white. And before I came here, for the first time in the history of Pakistan, after getting credible input from agencies, I made OSDs, those highest level officers who were not functioning, had a gray record, and I said, come what may, I will not accept any pressure. I will move forward with a sense of purpose, with a sense of achievement, and make Pakistan find its place in community of nations through hard work and untiring efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I think you heard on the applause that was very well received. I'm moving now to Anna Marks, a global chair of Deloitte. I think what we also have heard during these 2 days, and I know you, Anna, have been in many of the sessions too, is that we need more collaboration. If we work against each other, it's not productive. And you're seeing this in business context all the time. How can we collaborate better to meet the targets we have set, being sustainability, being inclusion? So I know you have some thoughts on this.
Well, thank you.
And your mic.
I think I would know after watching the previous two speakers and after dealing with remote working for quite some time during the pandemic. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the World Economic Forum and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for convening and hosting this special meeting. It has been a fantastic couple of days, and it has been inspiring to hear the openness, the enthusiasm, the acknowledgement, the optimism, despite the complexities, some of which we've heard just now. And you talk about collaboration and how is collaboration important, particularly when we look at inclusive growth, sustainable growth, growth that means that we can grow in a way that's fair and proportionate across societies, across geographies. And we can't do that without collaboration. And if we just pause on what we mean by collaboration, because actually these meetings are a great forum for debate and discussion and to start to collaborate.